So dear friends, people of my vintage will remember that when we were kids, there were two channels in Ireland. There were two television channels that we could watch. There was RTE1 and RTE2. Then they rebranded RTE2 as Network 2, and now they've changed it back to RTE1. But when we were kids, there were two channels. So if there was nothing on the one channel, you'd check the other. And that was it. If there was nothing on that you liked, then you didn't watch TV, because there were two channels. If there was nothing on, you moved on to something else. And I remember having friends then who lived in town, because obviously those who lived in town, they had more opportunities as regards TV and cable and satellite and whatever else. So friends of mine had satellite, and I thought, oh my goodness, I mean, if I like TV and I waste a good half hour of my day, kind of like you and your phones, only half an hour, isn't that right? If I waste a half an hour of my day watching TV, if you have 100 channels, they must be so super entertained, they must be much happier than I am. So I'd go visit them on occasion. And then I'd say, how many channels do they have? I don't know, 300 or something? 300 channels. 300 channels. There must be just amazing stuff going on. And then you flick through the channels, and the shopping channel, $19.99, you can get 2 for 1. And then there's a history channel of the Allies moved in across the, and okay, then there's a Western. Oh, jeepers, who'd watch Western? I mean, when you're kids, who'd watch Westerns? And there's just loads and loads of channels that you would never watch. Movies for men. Just really kind of boring channels. Then I realized, wow. With all these channels, they are no happier or no more fulfilled than I am with my 2 channels. There's this expression that we have I know it exists in Italian and probably other languages as well, but when we're spoiled for choice, to be spoiled for choice, okay? So what does that mean? It means you went to some restaurants, it's so many desserts that you just don't know what to choose. I don't know, death by chocolate or strawberries and fresh cream or truffles or a selection of ice cream. I don't know. Can I have them all? That's actually what they do these days at weddings. You get a little bit of everything. And there's a special, probably French name for it. A selection, a roulade. It's got some French name for a selection of desserts on your plate. To help us to overcome this being spoiled by choice. You get a little of everything. Okay. And when we're children, or when we're young, how do we decide then, with all these choices, how do we decide what's good, or how do we decide what we want? Well, as children, we generally decide if it tastes good, or if it feels good, or if it's kind of pleasurable, then we'll say yes. So if it's my favorite ice cream, it's my favorite dessert, and I'll choose my favorite thing. What's interesting is that as we grow up, our choices shouldn't be just based on it's my favorite thing, or it's something that I like, or it's something that I find pleasurable. As we grow up, our criteria for judging whether something is good or not must change. If they don't, we end up with what we see in society now, where a lot of decisions are made based on how we feel. I remember asking this question in school, in the secondary school. How do we make decisions? So if you've either I don't want to say a selection of girls, but there are a number of girls that you're interested in, or a number of colleges that you're interested in, or a number of things that you can do on a Saturday night, how do you choose what to do? And invariably the answer was, well, if it feels good, do it. If you'll know by your feelings, which is an absolutely disastrous way of making any decision. Again, that worked when you were a child. Will ice cream make me feel better, or will vegetables make me feel better? Well, ice cream will, so we'll choose ice cream. So, but then as an adult, if we still make decisions based on feelings, that's absolutely lethal for the spiritual life and for just maturity, even as regards human relationships. So the Lord doesn't want us to just make decisions based on feelings. That's crazy. Nor does He want us to make decisions just based on what brings us the most pleasure, because that's what they call a hedonistic lifestyle, where we make decisions based on what feels good or what feels pleasurable. But this is generally what is presented to us in the world today. Do this, it makes you feel good, and if it makes you feel good, then it's good. There was a person who I know who said that when her little daughter was very young, I've used this example before, apologies if you've heard it before, but she has this little daughter, and when the daughter was about 2 or 3 years of age, in the morning, she noticed that the daughter would get very stressed and angry and anxious and worried and start crying, get emotional, all sorts of. She's like, what on earth is going on here? It's only first thing in the morning, there's explosions already. And then she spoke to another mom, and they said, what's your morning routine? And she said, well, when my daughter comes down, we have breakfast, so I ask her, if she wants eggs or French toast or cornflakes or Rice Krispies or Honey Nut Loops, and I list all the cereals. And that's kind of when it kicks off. Then she starts getting all irate. And this child psychologist, she read this book on child psychology, which said that especially with children, if you give them too much choice, they don't have the criteria for making a decision. They don't know what to choose. So they get upset because then I don't know. So having too much choice isn't necessarily a good thing. So then she from then on, she said, okay, so good morning, honey, here's your breakfast, cornflakes. And the child was happy out. Decision made for her, right? At times having too much choice, at times having too much freedom, this can actually spoil us. And if we don't have good criteria for deciding what is right and what is wrong, we can find ourselves making decisions based on what is easy or what is pleasurable or what is comfortable, which is fine when you're 6, but not when you're 20. And even worse if you're 40 or 50, making decisions based on what's pleasurable and what's... So the Lord wants us to choose, not according just to pleasure, but according to what helps or benefits my soul. What helps or benefits those around me. So my appetites, my pleasure isn't my first criteria at all, but what helps my soul? And this you see in some families, it's so admirable that families would consider moving so that they can be in a place that's good for the souls of their children. They want to go to a place where there's a good Catholic school. They want to go to a place where there are good Catholic families. Fantastic. Like that's what we're talking about here. Making decisions based on what's good for our soul, what's good for those entrusted to my care, not just what's easy or pleasurable or comfortable. In our first reading today from Romans, there's just a beautiful line which I think is very helpful for us to commit to memory, from Romans 5. It says, however great the number of sins committed, grace was even greater. Now, it's sometimes slightly more poetically translated, where sin abounded, grace abounded all the more. Where sin abounded, grace abounded all the more. So living in at times, yes, it might feel like we're living in a world. I was talking to a parent yesterday who's saying, I don't know what movies I can show to my kids anymore. The vast majority of movies, when you look through them from a parent's perspective, so little you can actually watch that's morally okay. So where sin abounds, grace abounds all the more. We live in a world that's polluted, not the environment. I don't mean the environment, I mean human hearts. So where sin abounds, grace abounds all the more. If we're making choices not based on pleasure or comfort, but based on what's good for my soul and what's good for those entrusted to my care, then we'll find ourselves on the path that the Lord is indicating for us. If I believe that the Lord can bless me, those entrusted to my care, even in a world that's sinful, and I live then out of His guidance, His inspirations, then I'll find that things work out. He'll bless me, my family. If, on the other hand, I make decisions just based on quick or superficial satisfaction or pleasure or base desires, then life's going to fall apart, and I'll wonder why. So we ask the Lord today to renew our confidence in His guidance in each one of our lives. That when a myriad of decisions are presented to us, and a myriad of options, that we'll make decisions based on what he is calling us to do, based on what's good for our souls, based on what's good for the souls entrusted to our care. Amen.